Marvin redpost, book number 1, Kidnapped at Birth. Chapter 1, Royal Blood. The end. Marvin redpost put down his pencil. He was the first one done. He took his report to Mrs. North. Mrs. North looked at it. "I can't read this," she says. He had to copy it over. "Neither this time, Marvin," said Mrs. North. Marvin frowned. He was in the 3rd grade. His class has been learning cursive writing. "It's because I'm left-handed," Marvin complains. "It's impossible to write neatly when you're left-handed. Everything is backward." "I'm left-handed," said Mrs. North. "Oh," said Marvin. "We're lucky to be left-handed," said Mrs. North. "It means you have royal blood." She smiled at him. "You'd write neater if you slow down," she says. "It isn't a race." He returned to his seat. He picked up his pencil and wrote as fast as he could. He had to write twice as fast this time, just to catch up with everyone else. He had to write the report on something he read in Current Event. Current Event was a newspaper for children. This is what Marvin's note. "The king of Shampoons is looking for his lost son. The son's name is Prince Robert. Prince Robert was kidnapped the day he was born. That was 9 years ago. Prince Robert is 9 years old. He had red hair and blue eyes, unless he's dead. The king's going all around the world looking for his lost son. He hoped he didn't die. So do I. This week the king is in Washington, D.C. The end." Marvin finished writing just as the bell rang for recess. He gave his report to Mrs. North, then ran outside to play wall-ball. Marvin was 9 years old. He had red hairs. He had blue eyes. He lived in a small town, not too far from Washington, D.C. Chapter 2, You Can Do Anything. Marvin had 2 best friends, Sergeant Albert and Nick Turfel. After school, they all went to Surf House. "Put your dog outside," said Nick. Nick was brave. He once rode his bike full speed down Circuit Hill, but he was afraid of Floppy, Surt's little white dog. Marvin patted Floppy. "Careful, he's going to bite you," said Nick. Floppy growled at Nick. "He's a good dog," said Marvin. Floppy licked Marvin's fingers. Surt put Floppy outside. Where'd you get that stupid dog?" asked Nick. "Floppy's not stupid," said Surt. "He is too," said Nick. "He looked like a rat that ran through the cotton candy machines. We got him at the pond," said Serge. "I picked him out myself." "Well, you picked the wrong dog," said Nick. "I did not. Did too." Marvin was afraid they'd get into the fight. Nick and Serge were always getting into the fight. "I think my parents picked a wrong baby," Marvin says. "Huh?" asked Nick. "What?" said Serge. "At the hospital," said Marvin. "They took a wrong baby home. They're not really my parents." He's been thinking about this all day. He didn't really believe it. He just wanted to keep his best friend from fighting. "I was kidnapped the day I was born," said Marvin. "You're Prince Robert," explained Truth. Truth was smart. It sometimes amazed Marvin's how quickly he caught on to something. Say what? Asked Nick. Marvin's parents are really the king and queen of shampoos, Serge explained. Wait a second, said Nick. Mr. and Mrs. Redpost? No way. No, said Serge. Don't you remember what we read in Current Event? The prince was kidnapped at birth. So, said Nick. So Marvin is really Prince Robert, said Serge. Say what? Said Nick. I have red hairs and blue eyes, said Marvin. Everyone else in my family has brown hairs and brown eyes, and I'm left-handed. That means I have royal blood. Wait a second, said Nick. If your parents are the kings and queens of shampoo, then how did you end up in the hospital here? Marvin thought for a moment. He hadn't figured that part out. Simple, said Serge. The kidnapper has to hide the baby somewhere. Well, that's a better place to hide baby than with a bunch of others' baby in the hospital. That's right, said Marvin. Or, said Serge, maybe your parents didn't get you at the hospital. Maybe your aunt did. They just hadn't told you. I bet you that's it, said Nick. The kidnapper left you in the garbage bin. Then a policeman find you and took you to an orange. And then Mr. and Mrs. Redpost uploaded you. Or else, Serge whispered, Mr. and Mrs. Redpost might be the kidnappers. You'll get to live in the castle, said Nick, and you'll have 100 servants. You'll never have to make your bed again. Marvin shrugged. You'll have so much money, said Nick. You can buy anything you want. You walk in the store, you see something you want, you just buy it. You buy a car. You could buy a car. Marvin laughed. I'm too young to drive, he says. Duh, said Nick. No one going to leave a prince a ticket. You can do anything. Darn, I wish I had red hairs and blue eyes. So, you're so lucky, Marvin's man. Some people have all the luck. I'm not lucky, Marvin reminded him. I was unlucky to be kidnapped. We just have to figure out a way to tell the king, said Serge. And you can't let your parents know. If they're the kidnappers, they'll kill you for sure. Chapter 3. Marvin see the king. Marvin Redpost lived in the gray house. There was a fence around the house. The fence was all white except for one red post. He slapped the red post as he walked through the gate. He had an older brother, Jacob, who was 11, and the younger sister, Lindsay, who was 4. Jacob met him at the front door. Watch out, Marge, he says. Mom mad. I'm not mad, said their mom, coming up behind him. He sounded mad. Go clean your room, she told Jacob. I already cleaned my room, said Jacob. Clean it again, she said. Then help Lindsay with hers. Jacob was right. She was mad. And where have you been? She asked Marvin. At church, he says. Grandma and Grandpa are coming over. I forgot. You should have called, said his mother. You didn't tell me you're going to Third house. I have no idea where you are. I always go to Third house. Or Nick, said Marvin. You're supposed to call, said his mother. You could have been kidnapped for all I knew. Okay, I'm sorry, said Marvin. He went upstairs to his room. I was kidnapped. For all you know, he muttered to himself. He wondered if his mother would say that if she was really a kidnapper. Probably not. I want you to do your homework, his mother yelled up to him before Grandma and Grandpa got here. Okay, Marvin mutters. Marvin had a pet lizard named General Jackson. General Jackson lived in the glass cage next to Marvin's desk. She probably has no idea I'm Prince Redpost. Roberts, Marvin told the general. If she did, she wouldn't yell at me. She'd serve me breakfast in bed every morning. General Jackson stuck out his tongue. For homework, Marvin had to practice his handwriting. He wrote as fast as he could. If I was Prince, he says, I wouldn't have to do homework. A servant would do it for me. He finished his homework, then walked downstairs. His grandparents still has not arrived. His father was watching television in the den. Dad, said Marvin, was I a toad? What? No, of course not. Would you tell me if I was? Yes, but you're not. But you weren't. Marvin rubbed his chin. His father seems to be telling the truth. What happened when I was born? He asked. What? Did anything unusual happen? His father looked away from the television. It seems there was something, he says. I forgot what it was, but it was a false alarm. You were fine. He turned back to the televisions. Did they take me away? Asked Marvin. Or was I with Mom's every single second? His father sighed. No, you weren't with Mom's every single second. Can we please talk about this later? I'm trying to watch the news. Well, when I came back, said Marvin, did I look different? What? Okay, said Marvin. Like 3 days after I was born. Did I look exactly the same as the day I was born? I don't remember. Probably not. Babies change quickly. What did I look like when I was born? You look like a baby. All babies look pretty much the same. Now please, Marvin, I want to watch this. The doorbell rang. Marvin heard his grandparents enter. His father got up. Mammers, he says. But now Marvin was watching TV. The king of Jampoon was on the news. The king had wavy red hairs underneath his gold crown. I don't know if my son is alive or dead, said the king, except he spoke with a strange accent, so it sounded like, I don't know if my son is alive or dead. The king's face filled the TV screens. He spoke, Robert, if you're listening out there, please call me. Return to your rightful place on the throne. I need you. Your kingdoms await you. Except it sounded like, we need you. Your kingdoms awaits you. The newsman came on. If you think you may know someone who is Prince Robert, you should. The television shut up. Mr. Redpost put down the remote control switch. Let's not keep Grandma and Grandpa waiting, he says. Marvin's grandparents was making a big fuss over Lindsay. You're so pretty, Lindsay, said his grandmother. You look more and more like your mother's every day. And Jacob, you are the spreading image of your father's. Who do I look like, Grandma? Asked Marvin. His grandmother smiled at him. You look like... She stopped and thought for a moment. You look like both your parents," she says. But Marvin knew she was just saying that. She really meant he didn't look like either of them. He knew whom he looked like. He has just seen his face on televisions. He looked like a king of shampoos. Chapter 4. Marvin's redpost is dead. Are you really the lost prince of shampoos? Judy Jasper asked Marvin as he walked into the class. What? Asked Marvin. I don't think so, he muttered. Nick says you were, said Millie. Travis and Kenny hurried over. Nick says you're the lost prince of Shampoon, said Kenny. Is that true? Asked Travis. Before Marvin could answer, someone showed him. It was Clarence. You're not prince. You're not a prince, said Clarence. Clarence was the meanest kid in Marvin's class. I didn't say I was, said Marvin. You should push the prince, Clarence, said Judy. He'll throw you in the dungeons. That's right, said Milne. You're in big trouble, Clinton, said Troubles. I'm not scared, said Clarence. Nick put his arms around Marvin's. Hey, everybody, he says. This is my best friend, Prince Robert. Marvin took his seat. He wished Nick hadn't told everybody he was Prince Robert. Kathy Halpern sat down next to him. Good morning, King Marvin, she says. Marvin didn't answer. How are you today, King Marvin, she asked. Casey has a ponytail that stuck out of the side of her head, not the back. Did you do your homework, King Marvin? Asked Cassie. I'm not the King Marvin, Marvin snapped. I'm Prince Robert. He said it. It felt right. I'm Prince Robert. She had never liked the name Marvin. Everyone was staring at him. Marvin? Asked Mrs. North. He stood up. My name is not Marvin, he says. I'm Prince Robert, a lost prince of Shampoons. He knew in his bones it was true. He could feel his royal blood swirling around inside him. I was kidnapped the day I was born, he says. I was just a baby, but I can remember now. The kidnappers hid me in the hospital. Mr. and Mrs. Redpost took me home from the hospital by mistake. You remember this? Asked Mrs. North. From when you're 1 day old? It's kind of the haze, Marvin admitted, but I don't remember exactly what the kidnappers look like. One of them has a black mustache. Marvin has red hair, said Serge. Mr. and Mrs. Redpost has brown hairs. How do you explain that? Asked Nick. Well, do any of your grandparents have red hair, Marvin? Asked Mrs. North. Marvin thought for a moment. No, they all have gray hair, or else they're bald. And I'm left-handed. You said that meant I have royal blood. His teacher smiled. Well, let me ask you the question, Marvin. Excuse me, I mean Prince Robert. What ever happened to the real Marvin Redpost? Real Marvin Redpost? Huh? Said Marvin. 9 years ago, Mr. and Mrs. Redpost had a baby. You said they took you home from the hospital by mistake. After the kidnapper hid you in the hospital, what happened to the real baby? Some other parents took him home by mistake, suggested Nick. Then what about their babies? Asked Mrs. North. Or other parents took him home, said Judy. So parents just keep taking the wrong babies from the hospital? Asked Mrs. North. I'm real rappers. The real redpost could have died, said Casey, but then the people in the hospital discovered they had this extra baby, so they gave it to Mr. and Mrs. Redpost, and that way everybody was happy. Well, I suppose anything is possible, said Mrs. North. I watched the news last night, said Serge. The king of Shampoo was on. They gave number to the call. I wrote it down. Well, there you go, said Mrs. North. All you have to do is call that number. But at the moment, Marvin was feeling strangely sad. He was thinking about what Cassie Halpin said. The royal Marvin Redpost was dead. Chapter 5. The Duchess of Bathwaters. So what are you? Asked Clarence. Said Marvin. It was after school. He had just walked out of class with Nick and Serge. He's a prince, said Nick. Marvin wished Nick hadn't said that. Clarence glared at Marvin. Marvin shrugged. I'm sorry I praised you this morning, said Clarence. Huh? Said Marvin. Oh, well, that's okay. I don't mind. Clarence held out his hand. Marvin shook it. Ha! Laughed Nick. You're afraid Marvin threw you in the dungeons. I wouldn't do that, Marvin told Clarence. He wished Nick would quiet saying things that could make Clarence mad. Clarence looked at Marvin. Do you want a quarter? He asked. Marvin shook his head. Scratched elbowed him. Take this, Marvin, he whispered. Clarence pulled the quarter out of his pocket. Here, you can have it. No, that's okay, said Marvin. Take this. Take it, said Clarence. Marvin took it. Thanks, said Clarence. You're welcome, said Marvin. Clarence walked away. Nick and Stuart cracked up. Casey Happlins and Judy Jabbers came out the door. Goodbye, Prince Marvin, said Casey. See you tomorrow, Prince, said Judy. The two girls ran away, giggling. Marvin looked at the quarters. He wished Clarence hadn't gave it to him. The quarter is nothing but the prince, said Serge. Do you know how much your allowance is going to be? $100 a week? Gasped Nick. More, said Serge. 1,000? asked Marvin. Serge shook his head. Then he says, you rate in gold. Nick whistled. You should eat more, said Serge. The more you weigh, the bigger your allowance. You could have 3 ice cream and sodas a day, said Nick. 4, said Gerald. 5, said Nick. 6, said Marvin. Come on, said Gerald. Let's go back to your house and call up your father's. Why? Asked Marvin. His father worked at the office in Washington, D.C. The king of shampoo, said Serge. Oh, my father's, said Marvin. Duh, said Nick. They went to the Marvin's house. He tapped the red post and he walked through the gate. They went straight to the phone in the kitchen. Schroed gave Marvin a number to call. Marvin looked at the phone. Don't you want to call him? Asked Schroed. Sure I do, said Marvin. He wasn't sure. Well, do it, said Nick. I will, Marvin says. Don't rush me. He picked up the phone. What are you going to say? Asked Nick. Marvin took a deep breath, then dialed the number. Are you going to call him Dad? Asked Nick. The woman answered the phone. How may I direct your call, please? She says. I would like to speak His Royal Highness, the King of Shampoo, please, said Marvin. Oh, that's good, said Nick. I'm sorry, the king isn't here. May I help you? Said the woman. It's me, exclaimed Marvin. I'm the king's son, the one he is looking for. And your name? My name? Sir Marvin smiled at Nick and George. Prince Robert. The woman laughed. That may very well be, she said. However, we receive lots of calls. Do you go by the different name? Oh, said Marvin's redpost. And when you come in for your test, my test, your blood test. Yes, a blood test. Oh, said Marvin, I was afraid I am to know the capital of shampoos or stuff like that. The woman laughed. No, it's not that kind of test, she says. Marvin liked the way the woman laughed. It sounded almost like she was singing. How about 11 o'clock tomorrow, she said. She asked. I have schools, said Marvin. 4:30, asked the woman. Okay, said Marvin. She told him where to go for the test. It was at the Watergate Hotels in Washington, D.C., 5th floor. Excuse me, are you my mother's? Asked Marvin. What? The key? Asked Marvin. She laughed. No, she said, she stopped. I'm Lady Jennifer's, Duchess of Bathwater. Oh, said Marvin. Well, it was very nice talking to you, Lady Jennifer's. I was nice to talk to you, Marvin. I hope you really are Prince Robert. I like you. Marvin hung up the phone. Tomorrow, just 4:30, he told his two best friends. Now, all I have to do is get my mom to take me there.